I now see life not as a collection of good things and bad things that I do. It is just literally my opportunity to get to know the God who loves me. And it's my opportunity to accept him or to reject him.
For the groomsmen.
I grew up around religion all my life. I grew up around it, and what I learned from that was that God had a list of things, the good things that he wanted you to do, and then there were bad things you're not supposed to do. Somehow I have to appease this God because he's a little bit angry, because we've been bad. I've been bad. So he has every right to be upset. So he's upset, but somehow I need to do things to kind of gain some affection or at least keep the wrath away. When I was a little girl, my dad would get frustrated with me because I would put my shoes on the opposite feet. And so his way of teaching me was to come and crush my feet with his feet. And of course, I'm little and he's big. That didn't feel nice. And I didn't like it. So my view of God was related to my father in that way. Distant and didn't really love me very much, wasn't really kind, and when I made mistakes, he made me pay for them. And this is part of the reason why I stayed in that really rotten relationship. I thought I deserved that. I did something bad. Well, I'm getting what I deserve. My view of God was stern. It was aloof. Someone who was not really connected with me. But I had to appease him. I want to go to heaven. I don't want to be lost. And that was completely missing all throughout my life and adult life. I went to church. I did the things, but I didn't know God. I didn't know him for who he is. We ended up coming to the United States. My mother had to come with me. The rest of my family were able to get visas, so they came, but for my mother and I, we couldn't. We had to find a creative way, and that was through traveling through Central America, and then meeting up with coyotes in Mexico, and then crossing the border. At the border crossing, for some reason, the coyote convinced my mom that it was a better idea because the journey was rough, it was at night, and there were dangers that we should be separated and that she should take me. She had a passport with a girl's, some other random girl, and she was going to put me in the back of the car, pretend I was sick, and just drive me through the U.S.-Mexico border using this passport. So my mom agreed. And my mom went her way to go through her crossing. The woman, she took me in the car and she smuggled me into the United States this way. When I arrived at the stash house where all the people that were crossing the border, it was like a mobile home. I was 7 years old. It was May, and I remember that there were so many people in that house. You couldn't even walk without moving around the people. There was no space. And in the midst of all these people, I was looking for my mother. I looked for her and I waited. And I went out and I waited and I waited and I waited for days. And my mother never came. I don't really have a lot of memories about eating, living during this time. The only memory that is so etched in my memory is the absolute terror that I was alone and that I didn't know where my mother was, what had happened to her. This nagging feeling that no one wanted me. Here I was, and now I didn't have anywhere to go. I was a child. There was not a familiar face there. I finally heard from my family through a phone call. The coyotes had arranged to call my family in the States because they had gotten here beforehand. And when they contacted them, they had me talk to them. I was happy because I could talk to my grandmother. And she tried to calm me. She said, it's going to be okay. You're going to come home. We're going to figure out a way to get you. I thought that the coyotes were being nice. But really, now I understand that it was part of an agreement. They had to let my family know I was alive and that I was okay. And that way they could negotiate the price for my ransom because I was now kidnapped by the coyotes. The coyotes were going to make money one way or the other from me. And if my family wasn't able to come up with the money to ransom me, then I was going to be sold into something. My little mind didn't understand what that something was. But I knew that little children came into that building, into that mobile home, and I knew that they were moved through. They were cycled through. And I knew that they weren't going to happy places, some of them. Now I understand that that was human trafficking and that either I was going to be ransomed or go into sex trade or who knows what else. But my family ransom money, and my aunt, bless her, she traveled from New York City to El Paso, Texas, and she met with them in a hotel, endangering her own life, not knowing whether they would kill her, take the money, and keep us both, or who knows what. They did their exchange, and I was reunited with family. But I still didn't know anything about my mom. I thought the worst, and no one was really saying anything to me. I didn't know if my mom had chosen to abandon me, or if she had been hurt. I finally had someone tell me, sometime later, your mom is coming. I didn't know at the time that my mom had been caught at the border by U.S. officials and that she had been detained. My mom ended up meeting a friend of the family who was a U.S. citizen. He spoke no Spanish, and she spoke no English. But somehow, I don't know how, they connected, and they got married. Just in time for her not to be deported. This was great. My mom had found someone, and she had settled down. He was a very good, responsible man. He was police officer for New York State. He was an older man. He was financially stable. He was everything my mom could have wanted. And she loved him. And he loved her, and they went on to live 26 years happily married. He was really great, solid guy, but he had no children. He was an older man, and he did not want children. So their relationship was for them, and it was good. It was good for them, but I didn't fit into that equation at all. My grandmother kept me, but I knew that that wasn't my place. I knew she did that out of a good heart, but I knew that wasn't my place. I knew my parents were moving on and having their own lives, and they didn't have space for me in their lives. I quickly became very sad and depressed during that time. There was an issue of sexual abuse and incest, and it made me more confused. It made me feel really worthless. And it somehow made me attach who I was to sexuality. And somehow there was a link that happened there. And in retrospect, I can see why I would look for meaning and connection through sex at such a young age. Because I didn't know maybe any other way that someone would want to connect with me. By the time that I was 12, I didn't think I wanted to live anymore. I thought that I would be better off dead. And I wanted to act on that. I think what kept me from committing suicide at that point was that after everything was said and done, and after my own failed attempts, I realized that I was probably going to be worse off because I didn't know of an effective way. Later on, I found out things. After I was born, my mom was homeless for a period of time with me. She expressed sleeping on park benches with me. She expressed hiding under buildings with me. I didn't know that even my early life had been chaotic that way. I have no memory of it. But for her, having me represented a loss of so much. And although she loved me, it was hard for her to find a way to live in connection with me. January of 2019, my mother was diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer. She went for treatment, and she went to a complementary type of cancer care center. So she decided to go and do this along with her conventional treatments. And it just so happened that that place was 15 minutes from my home. And she was getting a lot of information about how to take care of her body. You know, the right things to eat, the bad things you don't want to eat, the way that lifestyle plays into sickness, disease, and her cancer. One of the things that they did there was that they also targeted the mind connection, the body and the mind together. They really targeted that. Since she was 15 minutes away, I would try and sneak and go there for their lunch or whatever. And I went on an occasion and I heard a lecture that changed my life. It felt like this is the missing link. I had tried religion. I had tried being good. It was the thing that I needed to make sense of the world I lived in. During that time, I had been dealing with 10 years of PTSD and the anxiety that came with that, horrible nightmares constantly regarding my previous marriage. And during that previous marriage, because there was a lot of physical abuse and a lot of that happening, I was reliving this in my dreams. I was reliving it. And if I was even in the courthouse with my ex-husband, my heart was racing out of my chest. I felt physically dizzy, ill. I felt as if I was going to collapse. Even though there was a bailiff and police and he couldn't harm me. And although there was a restraining order, he couldn't come see me, he couldn't come get me, the hurt lived in my brain. It was there. It happened years before. But it constantly continued to happen to me. I was being victimized again and again and again, and I couldn't stop it.
When I see patients in my practice, they all come with the same problem. The problem is they think someone else is their problem. And the idea that someone else is my problem is leading to nowhere. Because if someone else is the cause of your problem, or if what someone says or does is the cause of your problem, can you control what the other one is doing or saying? No. There is no way in which you can control the actions or the sayings of another person. That is in their sphere of action to control, and you can only control your own actions and your own words. So if you move to any place in the world, you will still take your thoughts with you. And the problem is not the person that is doing the evil thing. The problem is your thoughts about that situation. So if you realize you go wherever you go with your thoughts, and that is still a problem. And we see this very clearly with people who are nowadays depressed for something that somebody who has already maybe died or passed away 10 years ago, and the person is still depressed today because this person thinks that what the other did 10 years ago is the cause of his problems. It is always what I think what will bring me into problems. And this is very good news, because then the others I cannot change. But if the problem is my interpretation of what he does, then that is in my sphere of action, and I can change that. That means my problem can be solved.
It was me. Not on purpose, but it was the way that I processed what had happened, and it's very normal, and I don't blame myself for that. It was a very normal response.
I have had the privilege of working with many individuals that have dealt with significant traumas from the past. Those traumas might be in the form of physical abuse, they might be in the forms of abandonment and rejection, they might be in the forms of sexual abuse or rape or infidelity and so on. There are all sorts of things that happen in the life. And these are very difficult things to deal with, for sure. Very difficult. And that difficulty does not mean that they're insurmountable. From our human perspective, yes, they're insurmountable. We can't get over it. What I tell individuals is that victimhood is not what happens to you. Victimhood is what you think about what happens to you. So it's how you perceive the event, because the event can come and the event can go and the event can have been gone for 50 years, but the event still lives on, but it doesn't live on in its actual existence. It lives on in my thoughts. It lives on how I perceive that event and how I perceive that event affecting me, right? So how can an individual who has been through such traumatic things come to freedom from those things? And there's only one place and there's only one way.
I was like, okay, I need to learn more. This is going to be my life's mission, because if it's this powerful, I need to know everything about it. And I went on a quest.
So now what I want to tell the individual, and as I'm discussing with them, is you didn't do this on purpose. There's no guilt for doing this and so on, but there's something that's wrong and it's in your life, and let's look for it and see if it can be fixed. So you don't have to continue under this condition, any longer. And, so that there can be healing, there can be relief, because you can't fix a problem by just addressing the effect. You have to fix a problem by addressing the cause of the effect. And 90% of the time, you're going to find a cause to the effect being in the body. You're going to find the cause up here in the mind. And so it makes sense that you at least take that into consideration, if not focus on that. Why do individuals do this? First of all, we're born with a condition. We're conceived with a condition that we have inherited from our parents. And it's not a physical condition, but it has physical effects. It's a spiritual condition that then has physical effects. And that spiritual condition is our human nature as we understand it now, right? And I got it from my mom and my dad, and they got it from their parents, and they got it from their parents, and so on and so forth. And that human nature has an inherent problem to it, and that problem is that I, who am just a creature, believe that I am a creator. I can only pass something along, but I think that I produce it myself. And in thinking that I'm a creator, that I'm a producer, now I think that things come from myself. I think that I am my own. I think that love is, I'm giving something from myself, but now I do so with an expectation of receiving something in return. I think that I'm the owner, and therefore now I can lose things that are my own, and I can be at personal loss. I think that others owe me respect and honor and love and so on, and when they don't, I'm a judge, and so I judge them, and I hold them accountable for not loving me and respecting me and understanding me and so on, and I judge myself, and so then I have guilt and self-condemnation and so on. And am I doing that because I want to? Am I doing that because I like it? No. I'm doing that because I can't help it. That's just my automatic.
It is interesting to realize that as human beings, the root of all the problems that we have is within ourselves. Even though we think it's outside, but we have already seen that's a deception. The problem is within ourselves, in our identity, that makes us interpret things in the wrong way. So the problem is within, but we must now realize that the solution is not within myself, but it is outside of me.
The analogy I like to use is the analogy of a prison. Imagine somebody is born in prison. Are they guilty for that? Well, the answer is no. Imagine that they grew up in prison. Are they guilty for that? No. Then they become an adult in prison. Are they guilty for that? No. They may become an older adult in prison. Are they guilty for that? No. Especially if the condition of the prison is that anybody that's in the prison, they have a life sentence with no hope of parole, right? No hope of going free. Well, then there's no guilt for being in prison. Does a prisoner have choices? Well, the answer is yes. But where does a prisoner have choices? A prisoner only has choices inside the prison. A prisoner has no choices outside of the prison. And that's a problem, because free choices exist outside of the prison, and captive choices exist inside the prison. So what kind of choices does the individual have access to? Only captive choices, right? They only have access to captive choices. Yes, choice is still there, but it's limited. It's captive. Now, when an individual is born in prison, they don't know that they're in prison. That's just what you know. And so it takes time for an individual to grow up, to be in prison, which is familiar, because that's all you've known, all you've seen, and so on. And to then begin to try this door and try that door and try that window and try that thing and try whatever. And you realize, oh, I can't get out of that one. No, I can't get out of that one. No, I can't get out of that one. Oh, I can't get out of that one. I can't get out of that one. And you start getting a growing realization that, hang on, maybe I'm not free. And if you thought you were free, and now you're starting to get the idea that you're maybe not free, now you start trying more exits, more things that you're trying to get out. And each one you try, you realize you can't get out of, and now there's an anxiety that's building up, and you're going, oh man, what? I'm actually in prison, right? Well, welcome to the reality of most humanity. We're born in this condition. We don't realize that we're captive. We think we have free choices when we only have access to captive choices, and it takes time for us to struggle with this addiction and fail again and fail again and fail again and fail again, and then maybe switch to another addiction and then fail here and fail here and fail here and fail here, and have a relationship that falls apart here, and not be able to control myself in this situation, and not be able to control how much I eat here and what I eat there and when I get to sleep here, and so on and so forth. And I see all of these behaviors in my life that are just falling to pieces, and I can't hold it together. And if I have enough of that, I might actually come to the conclusion, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't. I'm stuck. Well, it might seem that that's a bad place to come to, but that's actually a good place to come to. It's a good place to come to. Because you can never go out of this prison if you think you're free. You can only begin the process of getting out of this prison if you understand you're a prisoner. So, how does that work? What's the way out? Well, if you're a prisoner in a prison and you have a life sentence with no chance of parole, the only way that you can get out is if somebody with sufficient authority, president, governor, whoever it is, offers you a pardon. And now, as the prisoner, you are offered something that gives you a choice where you had no choice before. Now, you may ask the question, well, why do they need a pardon if they're in, prison and they were born there and they're not guilty for, or, whatever that they have done? But there's also another aspect to it, and that is that when you're born in this kind of prison, you make prisoner choices, and you end up behaving like a prisoner. What you don't want is a prisoner with prisoner behavior being released into the public. Because a prisoner with prisoner behavior released back into a free society is then going to continue to perpetuate or perpetrate the evils of how a prisoner acts, right? And so this kind of prison is not a prison of crime, it's a prison of sin. It's not a prison of actions, it's a prison of intentions or motivations. It's not a prison, for example, of murder, it's a prison of hatred. It's not a prison of rape, it's a prison of lust. It's not a prison of theft, it's a prison of greed. It's not a prison of forgery, it's a prison of dishonesty. And so an individual is not in this prison because so much that they have committed an act, but that they have the motivation. So the process of setting an individual free from this prison must be a process that sets the individual free from any motivation that causes them to do any harm in any way. And that process takes time. But it begins with the offer of pardon. Now, you could reject it, sure, or you could accept it. Why would you reject it? Well, because prison is everything you know. Everyone that you know is in prison. It's familiar. Freedom, you've heard about it, but you've never experienced it, and so there's unfamiliarity that's there, and that can be uncomfortable. And some people will choose familiar over unfamiliar, even though familiar is problematic, when unfamiliar could be very beautiful, right? And so an individual has to come to a point where they're so disgusted with the prison that they're in that they're willing to face the uncertainty of leaving it and going into something that they're not aware of, and a process that they haven't been through before. And so the officer might have brought you the letter, you read the letter, you accept it. The moment you accept that pardon, you are considered a free person. Just like a chaplain or a guard in the prison. They might be in the prison, but they have every right to go free. And now you have a right to go free. But the process is a process. And so the officer says, come, follow me, we're going this way. Well, if you sit there and you say, well, I'm not going anywhere, well, guess what? You're not going free. You'll find out you're still a prisoner. And if the officer says, come, follow me, we're going this way, and you run and you go off that way, well, you'll find out that you're still a prisoner. And if the officer says, come, follow me, we're going this way, and you run past the officer and run down that way, and you bang on the door, get me out now, well, you'll find out that you're still a prisoner. Anytime you try to get out on your own, anytime you try any of the old ways that you tried to get out, anytime you take over the process of setting you free, you'll find out you're still a prisoner. But any and every time that you cooperate with the process and the one who's setting you free, it will work. And you tried that door 1,000 times before to get out of it. And now when the officer says, come follow me, go to that door. You follow them and you go to the door. They say, look up at the camera. You look up at the camera. And the door opens. And now there's another corridor, and there's more instructions, and there's another place, and you get to do this and that, and so on and so forth, all in the process of setting you free. And at the end of that process, when you step foot out of that prison, you have no more hatred. You have no more lust. You have no more disrespect. You have no more dishonesty. You have no more any of those things that would cause you to then act in a way that would be harmful towards others. When I was in prison, I only have access to prison choices, captive choices. Outside of the prison, I only have access to free choices. What about in the process? In the process, it's different. Because in the process, it's a question of, am I cooperating with the process right now, or am I doing my own thing right now? How easy is it for me to revert back to being a prisoner? It's like that. So easy, because it's the norm. It's how we've lived. It's like our default, right? And when we bring this analogy into the Christian context, we recognize that it's the grace of God, His goodness to us that we don't deserve, that has offered us the pardon. And He offered us the pardon not by simply saying, okay, everything that you did is okay, we're going to set you free. He did so because His Son offered to come and pay the penalty of what was deserved for all of the things that were done. He takes our place so that we can go free. And His Son, Jesus, in his nature, had access to captive choices, but he never made captive choices. He only lived by connecting with his Father, binding himself by trust to his Father and by faith taking from his Father, and therefore had access to free choices, and he lived by those free choices day by day by day, perfectly throughout his entire life. And in the gift of Christ, you and I are offered the same access to divinity, so that by faith we can have access to free choices, when in my humanity now I only have access to captive choices. So in the process of going free, when I accept the grace of God as my own, when I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, now I have access to free choices. But I still have an old nature that has access to captive choices. And now the real battle begins. There's a progression that happens in my life where I learn how to live more and more by faith in Christ, and less in falling back into the old fallen nature. Until at some point, by God's grace, I step foot out of that prison, and I will never go back.
The solution was designed by God in the person of Jesus Christ. And now the solution which is outside of me, I must make it my own. I must take it and go through the experience of the life exchange.
I heard this doctor who is a psychiatrist, and I heard her speaking about the mind. And she brought up a really wonderful concept. If I'm not my own, and if the things that happen to me, the Bible says that whatsoever you do to the least of these, you have done it unto me. That's what Jesus said. So what happened to me, it happened to Jesus. And if that was him, I don't have to be the owner of the hurt. I was there physically, yes. Yes, it occurred to my body. It happened and it hurt. But what I chose to do with that from that point forth, that was the difference. I could hold on to the hurt and make it my responsibility to manage, or I could let Christ be the one that manages it. And all of a sudden, I looked at my two options and I'm like, oh, I've tried this way. It doesn't work.
And the one place where people can be free is the cross. And the one way that they can be free is by faith. So how does that work? What Jesus did at the cross is he took your life. He took everything that you have been through, everything you have thought, everything you have said, everything that you have done. All of your life he became, so that he enters into your past, your history, your life, your timeline, and he takes your parents, he takes your upbringing, he takes the neglect, he takes the abuse, he takes the molestation, he takes the Prince Charming #1 who was not so charming and became abusive and unfaithful and so on. And he takes all of the life that you had and the experiences that you went through, and he takes the fact that you took those things personally. And you took it as though those individuals, what they did was your issue. And it was your problem rather than it being their issue and their problem, and seeing it from the wrong perspective and responding to it from the wrong perspective. Jesus took all of that of your life and from you, and he put it to death in himself on the cross. And being the one that they said and did those things too, because in reality, he took that from you. He on the cross said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. In essence, he was saying, Father, forgive them. They're crazy. Right? They're crazy. If they knew what they were doing, they wouldn't do it.
But forgiveness for me was, you did this awful, terrible thing to me, but I'm going to be a good Christian person, and I'm not going to make you pay for it. I could, but I'm not going to, because I'm a good Christian. I learned a new paradigm, a new way of forgiveness, which is only God is the judge. He's the only one that's the responsible agent to administer justice. The world is his, I'm his. Only he could administer justice. I no longer have to carry the burden of, you owe me, but I'm gonna, no, you don't owe me anything. When I did that, the nightmares that had plagued me for over 10 years, gone. They were gone. The anxiety that I felt if my ex-husband was in the same courthouse as I am, gone. From day to night, like from that moment. It didn't require 20 years of therapy. It was fantastic, is the best word I can say. Today, I actually have a friendly relationship with my ex-husband. I was able to go to him, give him a hug, and he cried and said, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And there was no fear, there was no anxiety, there was no racing heart, there was no dizziness, there was no, I'm gonna faint, I'm gonna go on the floor. Nothing. There was peace. There was peace. What was broken was made whole in my life.
And Jesus understood the truth, and he understood that if they really saw things the way that they really were, they wouldn't ever do any of those things. They would not have molested you. They would not have abandoned you. They would not have been unfaithful to you. They wouldn't have done any of those things if they truly would have understood the truth. And so Jesus understood that what they did because they were in the captivity. They were in the prison. They only had access to captive choices. And he yearns for them, he hurts for them, he desires for them to be free. And he also knows that I don't respond with the victimhood because I'm free. I respond with the victimhood because I too am captive. And I can't do otherwise. And so, as my Savior, he takes my place, and all of the things that have happened to me, all the ways that I've thought about it, and so on, and he puts it to death in himself. And in exchange, he offers me the gift of his life, where he never harmed anyone. He never did anything wrong. He had a perfect life, a perfect everything, and he had a perfect perspective. So that when individuals did things that were wrong to him, which was true, he recognized that what they did because that was in them. That was their issue. That was their heart issue. And yes, they might have been doing it in his direction, but it wasn't about him. So he didn't take it personal. And he also recognized that he came to represent his Father, so he was taking of his Father's love and his Father's goods, and he was passing that along to others like the parcel delivery guy. And if they took the packages of God's love and threw them on the ground and stomped on them and slammed the door in his face, he didn't take it personal as if it was about him. He recognized that what they were rejecting was not his love. They were rejecting his Father's love because he came to give his Father's love. And so it was an issue in their heart, and it was against his Father, not against him. So he didn't ever take it personally, and he never stopped loving them regardless of what they did.
Sadly, it wasn't until she was actively dying that we were able to connect. it was so beautiful. It was the most beautiful thing because we understood what the problem had been all along. And the problem had been that she kept looking for me to fulfill her, and I kept looking for her to fulfill me. And when we obviously failed, there was so much tension throughout our lives and so much hurt. I wish I would have known and understood things in a better way than I did throughout our whole relationship. But I tell you, I am so glad that before she died, we sorted it out. Now I have an image of God that is someone who is wooing me, who wants to win my affection, who is tender. And I didn't have that before. And when I talk about him or to him, I say Abba, because he's my father and he loves me. And a father, when a child makes mistakes, he's not there to crush him. And he's told me, I'm not here to crush your feet. I'm not here to crush you. I'm here to lift you. He's my helper. He's my good friend. He loves me. And all of the needs for intimacy that I was looking for in sex, I learned that I can have deep intimacy with him. And that's the connection that I was craving. And when that connection was filled, when I take from him, I'm fine. I'm good. So I learned this whole new concept, and I was wondering, okay, well, maybe if my mind and my relationship is resolved, maybe then I can have some resolution in my bodily symptoms. It worked for my PTSD, so maybe it'll work for my eczema. I thought the stress, I spent about 1.5 years caring for her. It was just, a lot of caring for someone you love, but someone that you don't get along with perfectly. You don't get along well with. I thought when she finally dies, because she went into hospice, and I thought, oof, my eczema is going to be terrible, because stress, I have known throughout the years, it makes the eczema worse. So I said, oh boy. I was prepared to have terrible eczema. Actually, my eczema, which never went away, went away. So I was like, how is this possible? I just went through the most traumatic event of losing my mother and going through all this crisis. And not only did I not get sick, I got healthier. And then I said, but I had a resolution with her. I had a resolution with her. And that made all the difference. Resolving my relationship with her was the catalyst to helping my health in ways that no other therapy could. And I've tried a lot of things. I used to spend a lot of time daydreaming about what I would do differently in my life and how it would be wonderful if I only would have made this choice instead of this choice. How I made things a mess, but if I could have done this, it would have been better. What I could change, or how I would do it, or how I would make my parents. And you know what? I wouldn't change anything, because that is what I needed to be where I am. How would I know what to change? Now I know I don't know anything. I learned that I don't know anything. And I learned that he knows everything. If I were to go back in time and fix something, I'd only probably make it worse. So, I trust him. The past is not my business. And the future's not my business. The only business is, what am I doing here in the now? If people have hurt you, and if you feel like what you're living is not enough, there is so much more. You don't have to stay broken. And you don't have to spend years in therapy. And you don't have to try new things. And there are many different things that promise to bring you relief. I firmly believe that if we learn this and understand this and apply this, our lives will be completely different.
Josh, I love you so much. Thank you for being patient with your mom. When you came into my life, I was just 14 years old, so I didn't know how I was going to keep you alive. I thank God that here you are. And I'm thankful because I got to grow up with you and see this wonderful day. And I know that it's a gift from heaven. And you're my heart. I love you.